have a stunning video today here on the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Bleacher Report suggested a wild trade idea that would land Karl-Anthony Towns in the 305. It was a 5-team trade projected by Bleacher Report. And here's the synopsis, and then we'll just kind of talk about Miami's end of things. Well, it was a major trade that landed Giannis Antetokounmpo with the New York Knicks. The Bucks got picks and players. Miami gets Karl-Anthony Towns. The Spurs get Lauri Markkanen, and the Jazz get picks and players. So the three major players in this deal, Giannis, Cat, and Markkanen, with Miami landing, I would say, is the second best player traded in this deal. So before we show more about this trade and talk about Cat, I just want to know from the Heat fans, would you even be interested in a Karl-Anthony Towns trade if it was on the table? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Now, I will not bore you with the details of every single player and pick being moved around this 5-team deal. Instead, we will just focus on the Miami end of things. In this 5-team trade, the Heat get Karl-Anthony Towns, as I mentioned, and all they give up is Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, and 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2030 and 2032. It's not that bad of a trade, if you ask me. Now, the 2 unprotected picks are going to be like, whoa, but you're getting rid of Rozier as well as a player that you may have shopped earlier in this offseason in Andrew Wiggins. But let's check in on Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report, who was the one who suggested this trade and described it from the Heat's perspective. There may be a bit of unease over giving up 2 unprotected first-round picks, but this is almost as much of a no-brainer for Miami as it is New York. Cat is coming off of an all-NBA campaign where he averaged 24.5 points, shot 42% from deep. And his outside shooting makes him a pretty obvious fit alongside another combo big in Bam Adebayo, who does much of his damage inside the three-point line and is an underrated distributor. Playing next to a floor-spacing forward/center as good as Towns would go a long way toward maximizing Adebayo's playmaking ability. Add Tyler Herro to those two, and the Heat would suddenly have a pretty dynamic, relatively young trio, and they'd still have plenty of young talent like Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Nikola Jović to deploy around those three. Not even mentioning, by the way, Kel'el Ware. But the last part of that kind of excerpt from Andy Bailey is the exact reason why I believe it is a fascinating idea. You are acquiring an all-NBA center from last year, arguably one of the most offensively gifted centers that the league has ever seen, and I will confidently say the best three-point shooting center the NBA has ever seen. And you're only really getting rid of picks. Wiggins and Rozier would not destroy you in terms of losing them on your roster. So flipping 2 first-round picks in salary to get a guy in Cat who is a walking 20 and 10 with 50% shooting from the field and 41% from 3 on 5 attempts a night is certainly something that will catch my attention. Does Cat have a lot of deficiencies? He absolutely does. But his positives, I feel as if, might outweigh the negatives. And you look at Cat's shot chart from a year ago, it's certainly an interesting one. I'm not going to lie, because you look at it and you're like, well, I see a lot of red. Well, let's just start with this. Cat does not shoot mid-ranges. Cat is almost like your prototypical modern-day guard. He is either shooting a 3 or he is shooting one at the rim. And he is able to handle the ball slightly and take people off of the dribble if he's got a size advantage in the dribble drive game. But you see it there. He shot 42.7% above the break from beyond the arc. That is 7% better than league average from a year ago, and he's pretty much a league average scorer inside the paint and at the restricted area. Like, taking this swing is something that I could get behind, because I will say that again. He is as offensively talented as a center as you can find. I would argue the only player in the NBA at his position that is better offensively is the best player in the NBA over the last 4 years, a.k.a. Nikola Jović. Other than Jokic, there is no center that can be as dynamic as Cat on the offensive side of the floor. Him and Bam would be an elite duo in the front court. They both can guard on the perimeter slightly. Obviously, we know Bam is elite on both ends defensively, whether it's perimeter or inside. Cat can maybe probably guard centers and stay inside rather than guard fours. Bam could be that free roaming wing / forward defensive player, but the two would work so hand in hand offensively because Cat can handle as well as Bam, but Cat is obviously such a dynamic floor spacer. More to come on this video, but subscribe today for daily Heat videos. We have trade rumors, news, and when the season starts up in a month or two, we will be live for Heat games, watch parties. Subscribe today as we're on the road to 25K. Need to get there before the season gets started. Do it for the rookie, Kasparas Jakuponis. When I think about adding Cat to this front court, in that trade, we were only trading veterans and 2 first-round picks. So you are keeping your entire collection of young players. The aforementioned Jakuponis. We talked about Jović and Jaquez. But you're also keeping Kel'el Ware. And you go from one of the weakest front court it's in the NBA in terms of depth, only having Bam and Ware, to now you would have the best. There would be no better collection of 3 players as a collective unit in the NBA than Cat, Bam, and Ware. Having the ability to play 2 of those guys together at any moment, or honestly, have just one of them on the floor, and you could go Nikola Jović at the 4 with maybe Cat and Bam sitting down, or you go Cat and Jović with Bam and Ware sitting down. Like, you just have so much versatility in that front court to where it would be the best in the NBA, in my opinion. The collection of those 3 would outweigh just a Nikola Jokic. You would have 2 of the top 5 centers in the NBA, in my opinion, if you still count Cat as a center in this day and age. Some might count him as a 4, some might count Bam as a 4 as well. But the obvious concern is Cat's age and contract. Yes, he is still relatively young, but this upcoming season will be age 30 for Karl-Anthony Towns. He's got 3 years left on his deal, 2 of them fully guaranteed. One of them is a player option. 53.1 and 57 over the next 2 years, with that player option in 2027-28 being worth $61 million. And based off Karl-Anthony Towns' play, I will have to imagine he opts into that deal, because I would not feel as if Cat would get $60+ million when he's age 32, 33 on the open market. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and he does get that much and would opt out. But if he plays that well and is deserving of a $60+ million contract annually, you'd have to imagine if Miami made the trade, they would be willing to pay him that because it would have worked out over the last couple of seasons. And I will mention this as well. If you do make this trade, you are committing to a Bam, Herro, Cat trio for the next 3 years, because Bam's under contract, Cat's under contract, and Herro is contract extension eligible this offseason in October. And he is probably going to get close to 40, 43 mil a year. You make that trade, you're now paying Bam and Cat over 50, Herro around 40 when his extension officially kicks in 2 seasons. And it's just like, well, you don't really have much roster flexibility outside of those 3, so you'd have to fill the rest of the group with low-level contracts and guys on rookie deals. So it would make creating a more well-balanced roster just slightly more difficult. More to come here in a second, but shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show, the daily fantasy sports platform I am on every day. And even though basketball season is not here right now, we got football season on the horizon. The professional league starts in a couple weeks. College football starts this week, and I couldn't be more excited to get in on the action with football officially underway. It's so simple to play. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. And I already have a 3-player entry in for the first week of college football. Less than Haynes King passing yards, less than Arch Manning passing touchdowns, and more than Deshaun Bishop rushing yards for the Tennessee Volunteers. The best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, when I'm going back to potentially making this trade, I am really torn on if it makes sense. We spoke very highly of Cat in terms of his offensive ability and what he would bring to the table for the Heat's front court. but we also talked about how he is expensive financially and would commit yourself to a Hero Bam Cat trio for the next 3 years. Well, I kind of made a pros and cons list, old school style here, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts before I give you my official conclusion. Pros, one, you get off of Terry Rozier. You don't have to deal with him anymore and that expiring $26.6 million contract. Another pro, we already mentioned it. Create an elite front court, the best in the NBA, if you're asking me. Another pro, I believe you would become a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm having a hard time imagining adding Cat, just losing Wiggins and Rozier, would then make you less competitive. No, you would be better than a team like Atlanta. You would be right there with Orlando and Cleveland. Now, in this hypothetical trade, the Knicks do get Giannis, so they would probably be the best team, and I don't think Miami would be able to take them down. But hey, you never know. Now, the couple cons. No financial flexibility, as I mentioned. You would be in the aprons after this season. You have no more tradable first-round picks in the future because you only have 2 right now, so you would burn both of them for Cat. And then we obviously know Tyler Herro is not good defensively. Karl-Anthony Towns is not good defensively. Could you masquerade Cat with the Bam Adebayo duo in the front court? Yes, you could do that. But those two combined, getting put in pick and rolls, oof, that could be really ugly. But if you do make this trade, think about this potential starting lineup. And in this hypothetical, I would then move Norman Powell to the bench and start Davion Mitchell for more defensive purposes. Nikola Jović takes Andrew Wiggins' spot at the 3. Bam and Cat start in the front court as a duo, and then you start Davion Herro in the backcourt. So you have Davion as your point guard / point of attack defender. Herro is your off-ball 2 guard who could score it and handle it. Jović is that connective piece that can do it all with Cat and Bam in the front court, and you would have a pretty stacked bench with Kel'el Ware and Norman Powell being your first 2 guys off the bench with Wings, Larson, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. waiting in the fold as well. Like, you think of that top 9 that we just showed with the potential starting lineup and first 4 off the bench, that's a pretty damn good top 9 of a roster. And I would probably put Miami as the 3rd best team in the East. I think it would be very competitive. I think it would be better than an Orlando Magic roster. I think it would be better than a Hawks. I think it would be better than a Pistons. Like, the Heat would catapult themselves with that trade, in my opinion, under the tutelage of Erik Spoelstra, to either the same tier as the Cavs or just slightly below them. In this hypothetical world where Giannis goes to New York and Cat comes to Miami, the Knicks are the clear-cut 1 in the East with the Cavs and Heat in that 2A, 2B type of range. And then you have got the Orlando, Detroit, and other teams right there at that like 4, 5, 6 type of range. I think it's damn good squad you would put together. So let me know your thoughts. Now, after hearing me speak about it for the entire show, going back to this deal. Wiggins, Rozier, 2 unprotected first-round picks for Karl-Anthony Towns. Would you do it? Type A for accept or type D for decline. Rolly's final word. I'm close to talking myself into this trade. I kind of did it over the course of this video because of how offensively gifted this group would be, as well as having a stacked bench, having Powell and Ware come off of it. But I also do have to acknowledge the fact there is a 0.1% chance that this would ever happen because I do not see Giannis actually requesting a trade this offseason, and I do not anticipate Miami being a team that would go in on a player like Karl-Anthony Towns. If they're going to make a blockbuster trade, they would probably focus on a younger guy in their mid to late 20s rather than starting in their 30s, and a player that isn't as deficient in their defensive game. Plus, they love Kel'el Ware, and they'd probably like to see what he can do with Bam long term. That'll do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody who has watched this entire episode. If you are still watching and aren't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Because you obviously like what we're doing to a degree. Subscribe today, and I'll see you on a video tomorrow. Go Heat.